Hockey Twitter is full of hot and some not so hot takes, so let's see what Hockey Twitter has to say about the sport today, shall we? Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. For today's video I am reacting to Hockey Twitter takes. I put it on Twitter if anyone wanted to reply with some random take they have about the sport, literally anything. I want them to tell me it and I'd react to it in this video. So let's see what all the great minds of Hockey Twitter have to say today, shall we? So for the first one, it's about should women's hockey be full contact, or does women's hockey benefit from being non-contact? So I understand there's a lot of implications with this, but to me the priority should be getting more equality for women's hockey first, and especially with the fact that the reason I read up on this a little bit, and I could be wrong here, but I read that the reason they removed the contact from women's hockey is because they weren't making a living from it, whereas men were. So it was almost like the risk of your other job being impacted was a greater risk for the women, and that's why they removed the contact. If I'm wrong, someone please correct me. I read that online, but shock, women's hockey is harder to look up than men's hockey. But I think there should be more equality first before that, because at the end of the day, if there's not equality that benefits the women in the sport, then maybe there shouldn't be that. But I don't know, and personally I think that should definitely be up to women who play. I don't play, I just love to cheer other women on who do, because I think it's absolutely great. But ultimately, sometimes in hockey there's too much emphasis placed on the contact bit of the sport, and sometimes the skill is left out a little bit, and so there should be more priority on the skill in my opinion anyway in hockey. I love to see a really skilled play, but I mean ultimately it should definitely be something that is agreed with the women who play, not some random girl on the internet putting her opinion out there. But basically, women's hockey needs to be more equal in all ways, and the benefits need to be far more equal for them first, I think. But yeah, major shout out to the women's team, Team Canada, who played with their masks on for that game. I absolutely salute you. You're a bunch of incredible women anyway, but absolutely love that. Go you. Love cheering on women in sport. It's a great passion of mine. The next opinion is the fact that Premier Sports blacks out the NHL app in the UK. Yes, so this drives me bonkers. People always ask me how I watch the games in the UK. I have an NHL TV subscription and I have a Premier Sports subscription, and can you believe that there's still occasional games that I still can't watch despite paying all that money every single month? It's ridiculous. And I know that there's plenty of dodgy sites that exist and stuff, but I don't really like to do that too much, and I like to watch it on the TV anyway. So yeah, it's very annoying. I just wish all the games were shown on NHL TV, to be honest. I was really excited when I saw Premier Sports broadcasting more games, both from the Elite League and the NHL, but ultimately it could be better still. And personally I would rather, blackouts just drive me nuts, and I know that blackouts are definitely a thing in North America too, because I see people complaining about them all the time, but blackouts are just an absolute pain in the arse. I don't have any other way to describe them. So yes, I empathise with this take completely. The next take I really like. So British ice hockey should adopt the 3-2-1 scoring system. So basically, if you win in regulation you get 3 points, and overtime win is 2, and overtime loss is 1, and then obviously lose in regulation is 0. I really like this idea, especially sometimes I think in British hockey in particular we need to spice it up a little bit, and there's quite a gap sometimes in our league tables, and I do wonder if changing it to this system might benefit that a little bit. Plus it would make for a better overtime, because sometimes it feels like teams are well, we've got the point, it's only an extra point, you know, sometimes it doesn't seem like overtime is worth all that effort. So I definitely think that's something that could be quite cool to see. But at the same time I understand that would be difficult to get used to in a way as well. But I quite like the idea, and I'd love to see it even just trialled out for a season over here, just to see how it was. This one came from Rachel. Rachel, I love you if you're watching this. I just love you. You're one of the sweetest souls ever. Goal intent or interference shouldn't be a thing because no one knows what it is. So accurate. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think there needs to be penalties for, you know, like getting in the way of the goalie completely. But the problem is it's very subjective, it seems, and I don't think anyone quite like the refs never get it right half the time. Like sometimes it's clear goaltender interference and there's nothing called. Other times there's stuff called and I'm like, that's a bit soft. So I mean, that rule was introduced in the 91-92 NHL season. That's when it was first introduced, and technically it's meant to be if the attacking player by positioning or contact impairs the goalkeeper's ability to move freely within his crease or defend his goal. Which I completely understand as a rule, but sometimes it's just like it doesn't even make any sense. So I think maybe there needs to be that's a very, very generalised definition of a rule, and I think there maybe needs to be more changes made to it that makes it more specific and easier to call and easier to challenge if it's not called. So yeah, I definitely agree there needs to be some changes to the goaltender interference rule. Next is, if we lose to Tampa or Florida in the first round, Dubas should not be fired. Having to play those teams in the first round is stupid considering the Leafs' record. I totally agree. Anyone who is wanting to fire Dubas for losing in the first round to a team like that, you need to take like a look at yourself, because that's not fair. We are extremely unlucky in our division. Like the best teams this season are in our division, and the chances are in the first round we're going to be playing them. So you know, I'll be gutted if we get put out in the first round again, but when it's teams like that, it's really hard to think that firing Dubas is the answer. It's really, really not. They are incredible teams, and as much as we're an incredible team too, we've got it a lot harder than what I think any other first round will be. I think we've got the hardest chance in that. So definitely not. Dubas should not be fired if we're put out in the first round by a team like that. 3 takes in 1 here. So the All-Star game needs to go back to the best players and not all teams need to be included. Completely. The Habs didn't need to have someone there this year. How is anyone even claiming that? They're terrible. I can't even slag them anymore, it's that bad. So I totally agree. It's meant to be like the best of the best, not the best from every team, you know, it just doesn't make sense. Playoffs need to go back to 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, etc. I totally agree, makes sense, that's a good seeding system, that completely makes sense. And most importantly, every team should be required to have a dog. I totally agree, and I tweeted this cute picture of my dog the other day, and you know, if the Leafs need a team dog, I can fly her over, it's okay. She is adorable, and yeah, everybody needs a dog. Everyone needs a dog in general, especially hockey teams, so totally. The next one sounds like it's written by me, but it's not. We need more women involved in the sport in some way. You know what, I might do a whole video on women in ice hockey, because I feel like that's something I could definitely go on about for ages. I mean, claiming that women's hockey doesn't belong in the Olympics for any reason is one of the most ridiculous things I've heard this year. It absolutely does. Everyone was watching the women's hockey. It's been great. I absolutely love it. And so they need to be playing it more. There needs to be much more opportunities for women and girls to grow up playing the sport. There also needs to be more opportunities in terms of roles within the clubs, like coaching, staff, management. Even I would love to work in like a social media marketing role for an NHL team. I would absolutely love that. That's up there in one of my dream jobs. I would love to do the social media related things for like a hockey team. I would absolutely love to do that. And even just as fans, you know, like if women just supporting in general seems to cause some controversy that it never does with men, and there's questioning and stigmas that go around it all that doesn't happen for men. Just generally there's a long way to go in equality, gender equality in hockey in particular, equality across the board, but we're just talking about gender here, and there's a lot that needs to be changed, and it is improving, don't get me wrong. I've seen it improve just in the kind of short time that I've been involved in the sport, but there's a long way to go still, and I think the more that we talk about it and educate ourselves and just try and learn from things, I think that's important, because it'd be pretty awesome for one day girls to be growing up not even having to think about the fact that they're female if they want to be involved in any sport. I think that would be an absolutely wonderful thing. So yes, definitely always more women involved in hockey. I will always advocate for that. So this one here, I've got a bunch of obvious takes, such as why Bettman sucks and players shouldn't owe their owners the loss revenue, but I think my most controversial is that NHL referees are actually good. However, the league tells them to manage the game in a way which causes them to appear poorly. Okay, I quite like this. I feel like this is kind of a reasonable take. There's definitely a lot of reffing problems, and I would definitely need to look more into it before I would completely agree or disagree. Game management itself is an issue. I remember on the podcast I help run, I'm a co-host on with a bunch of amazing guys, I'll link down below. We talked about this for quite a while in one of the episodes, and also I remember Steve Dangle, absolute icon, I love Steve Dangle's videos. I remember him talking about accountability of referees after the games and the fact that players and, you know, coaching and management staff are available for interviews and questioning, but the officials aren't, and maybe that would change and hold them more accountable to their choices and actions and decisions. And I really like that idea. I think that would be something great to have, and it would give them a chance to explain themselves, and I think that it would maybe make people, it might improve the game a lot, to be honest. So this take I completely understand. I'm not going to completely, I think there's like a grey, I usually sit in like kind of a grey area in the middle. I don't think anything is truly like black or white. It's usually somewhere in the middle. But I think there's things we could be doing to improve it either way. So that's my opinion on it. Do continuous OT in the regular season too, no more shootouts. I don't agree, because I love a shootout. I really like shootouts. They excite me so much, and I agree with the playoff format and how that goes, but I think in the regular season I personally would want to keep the shootouts, but that's for my own selfish reasons, that I really enjoy them even though they make me sweat like hell. The Coyotes should be moved to Quebec City. This right here, this is one of the best takes that was in that thread. I totally agree. It's an absolute joke that Arizona are still doing what they're doing. I don't know what Guy Bettman's playing at. We won't go there. I just think it would be so much better for the league as a whole. I mean, look at Arizona. Pity Arizona. As if Austin Matthews is moving to Arizona. I totally agree. I think it would be great for the sport and great for Canada itself, because it's the divide in the amount of teams is just meh. And I know there's logistics involved in that, I understand, but yeah, I totally agree with this take. When a high prospect turns into a bust, 90% of the time it is because the team didn't develop them properly. Screams in Cole Caulfield. I completely agree. I think if Austin Matthews had gone into a terribly managed team, I don't think he would be where he is right now. I think the Leafs have helped build him a lot, and it doesn't matter how good a player is, if they're somewhere that doesn't have the right attitude towards developing them, they're going to flop, which is a shame. And yes, I completely agree again with this take. You guys have some good takes. Not all takes are good. I feel like I've been reasonably lucky with these ones, but yeah, totally agree. Again. Removing the Rover position was the death of hockey. Okay, right, the Rover position, so the idea that you would have a player who just roamed around the ice and went wherever he was needed. It was back when it was like a 7-player thing. It stopped around 1923, I believe, and he was basically like a centre defenseman, I guess. I wouldn't go as far to say it was the death of hockey. I mean, it's been gone for too long, and hockey's very different now. Do I think that we maybe need something like that? I think it could be interesting to watch, but I'm not necessarily sure that it's necessary. I think there's enough players on most teams who are able to play different positions and in different areas that I don't think we really need something like that anymore, but it would be interesting to watch nonetheless. And I mean, hockey changes over time, and 100 years from now hockey's not going to look the way that it does now. My generation of hockey is different to the generation that like my parents would have grown up in or whatever, and I think that's a good thing. But yeah, it would be interesting to see, and I like this take. It was really different, so yeah. The Leafs will win a cup in my lifetime. I really hope so. I'm praying. That's all I can say. Too much emphasis is put on leadership or being good in the room. If you're good at the thing, you'll win the bling. Hockey has too many random events for that other stuff to matter. Okay, thank you for this. Personally, I don't agree. I think that leadership is an incredibly important part of the team, and I think people like John Tavares, for example, are incredibly important to have. I think what goes on off the ice impacts what's on the ice, and I don't think that just looking at what goes on ice is enough, because there's no way that someone can separate what goes on in the locker room compared to what goes on the ice. I don't think that is the case. I think it's important to have a good balance of both. I mean, there's no point being like a great leader and great in the room but not good on the ice. I'm not saying that, but I think ideally you want people who are like good at a bit of both. You don't want someone who's going to bring toxicity into the team or ruin the team dynamic, because at the end of the day, if you've got someone who is completely ruining that dynamic and system, you're not going to perform as well, in my opinion. The trapezoid is the worst rule in hockey. I completely agree. So the trapezoid has been a rule since the 05-06 season, and it means the goalie can only put the puck in that area or in front of the goal line. And I wish that wasn't a thing, because I love wacky goalie moves, and I think goaltenders would have much more freedom if this was not a thing. So I completely agree that it's probably one of the worst rules in hockey, and I wish they would change it back to the way that it used to be, to give goaltenders more freedom across the ice. Yeah, shouldn't be a thing. Austin Matthews is greater than Connor McDavid. Everyone knows my feeling. Like, guess my favourite player. Yeah. Which means I'm going to defend him against all odds. Take the stats out of it. I just think Austin Matthews is incredible, and I know people are going to come for me for this one probably, but in my opinion, I just think Austin Matthews is a million times better. His personality and stuff too is just incredible, and I just love him so much. And it's not to disrespect Conor McDavid, because I think he is absolutely incredible, and definitely if you look at some stats, there's an argument McDavid is better, 100%, but we're doing me reacting to takes here, and I'm always going to defend Austin Matthews. Nobody's ever going to replace Austin Matthews in my book. I mean, I've got a Matthews thing on right now, and I also have a necklace on that I wear every single day. I also have this on. So guess what my response is going to be to that. Hockey night in Canada is not the same without Don Cherry. Okay, I understand the like sentiment of this, and I understand that it's going to be one of those things that's always going to be linked, and quite rightly so, like 100%. But at the same time, you can't just, something as important in hockey as that, you can't just restrict to one person or even one era, because things have to develop and change. And unless you want to leave Hockey Night in Canada behind, I think you have to adapt to it being related to different people that have different opinions, different takes, different ways of it being. And I think that's one of those things that it's nice that it develops and adds to the history of the team. So as much as I totally understand the like sentiment of this, I think it's important to adapt to change in hockey, in terms of the sport, the media, the coverage, everything. I think that's just an important part. Everything has to change at some point. Yeah. And my final take for today, because I've been filming this for forever, is that players should serve the full 2 minutes regardless if the other team scores. So this one I'm like a little bit mixed on. I mean, it would take some getting used to, but it would make more use out of the penalties, wouldn't it? I mean, if someone scores like 5 seconds into the penalty, it's kind of like, well, what's that even served too much? And I think you'd end up with a lot of high scoring games, which I love a high scoring game. It's definitely more entertaining to watch. So I kind of agree. I'd like to see it trialled out. It's one of those things, until I saw it fully trialled out, I don't know if anywhere uses this system, but not that I've watched anyway. But I would love to see that happen. That would be very intriguing to watch, and yeah, good take. So that is all of the takes that I'm going to react to. There were so many good ones in that feed, and I had to pick some out, but I can always film more, don't worry. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a little bit of a different thing, getting people to just send me their hot takes on hockey, and I would just talk about them for a bit. So thank you for watching as usual. Here are my social medias, make sure to follow. I'll link them all down below as well, especially my Twitter, because the best place to be. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment down below any other takes you have, or if you disagree with any of my opinions, because as long as we're nice to each other, it's great to have different opinions, so make sure to do that. And thank you for taking your time out to watch another one of my videos. I absolutely love making these so much, and yeah, so thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll be back next week with more hockey chats. Bye.